Hello, everyone. It's great to have all of you here joining us for the Child Protection and Education webinar. It's a pleasure to have you. It will be presented by our colleague Lizzy Bell. My name is Billy Andre, so I am the chair of the Education Technical Learning Lab, and we will be hearing from Lizzy, who is the Safeguarding and Child Protection Advisor for ADRA Norway. Um, we are pleased to announce that we have translation services for this webinar. We have French, Spanish, and Arabic. Um, for Arabic speakers, we want to inform you because Zoom has limitations on which channels to assign. That if you do need Arabic translation or interpretation, please use the Portuguese channel. We apologize for that, but that's our way of working around the system. Yeah, so we will have those languages available. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat feature, and with that you can ask your question in any language, well, not any language, but in the languages that we have selected, and we will be able to interpret for you. Some other housekeeping rules: if you are joining us, just make sure that you have your phone off, not your phone off, you're on mute. And also, but if you have questions, feel free uh, to to put it on the chat and share. Um, what else? Yeah, and lastly, I just want to also to invite you to join our community of practice on HumHub. It's very active. We post a lot of information about child protection, about education. So we want to encourage you to have those resources available for you, and have those resources available for your colleagues. We are also welcoming any suggestions and ideas in terms of how we can make our webinars better. So if you have any of that, please feel free to share with us. In the meantime, d- questions, feel free to ask. We will have a session where we will, at the end of the meeting, that we can ask more questions. And at the end of the webinar, we will have an extended session. If you have more questions, we can share and ask. So that way, we'll have ample time to discuss and talk. Yeah, we're here to support and help. So just as a last reminder, for Arabic speakers, please join the Portuguese channel. And the only reason is because Arabic is not yet supported over Zoom. So we are using the Portuguese channel in order for the Arabic speakers. For the French speakers and the Spanish speakers, feel free to use the respective channels. Um, I hope that helps, and we appreciate your support. Thank you once again, and I'm gonna hand it over to Lizzy. Feel free to start, Lizzy.
Thank you, Billy. So it's really nice to meet everybody. I'm Lizzy, and I hope that we get to talk later during the question session. So I'll make a start. So today I'm introducing the Child Protection in Education package, which is a package of about 8 different documents, including manuals, posters, all sorts of different things that aim to help staff to ensure that children are as safe as possible in education programs. So this came from ADRA Norway, and ADRA Norway increasingly was working in education programs, and so that's when I came on board about 7 years ago. And for about 5 years, this package emerged organically over time, as and when country officers requested documents, manuals, training materials, and it sort of came together over a 5-year period. It's been used in at least 11 countries, so that's including ADRA Norway's partners and other ADRA partners globally as well. So it's been fairly widely used, but of course it could be more utilised as well. So as with any training package or set of training manuals, there are strengths and weaknesses to this package, and I fully acknowledge that. And I'm sure that once you've had a chance to look at them as well, you'll also find some things that could be improved, and I welcome that fully. So some of the strengths are that it's been fairly widely used. It's been used in 11 countries. So feedback has been given by those 11 countries, and there's been about 4 or 5 revisions of this training package over the 5-year period. So the ones that we're looking at today will be the most up to date, but over following years, they'll be constantly under review as well, as and when feedback arrives and changes are made in the sector. So the feedback, however, has been positive. Generally, staff say that it's easy to follow. So it's set out in an easy to follow way. It's engaging, and it has lots of activities. So it's not a lecture style set of training materials. It aims to be engaging, and a lot of it is aimed at teachers. So it aims to demonstrate what good teaching and learning looks like, as well. And then some weaknesses are that it's available in English and some of it's available in French. However, there are obviously many more languages needed. And so if you take it on as a country office, it will be something you need to consider, whether you can join forces with other country officers to share the costs of translation, or just the logistics of that will need thinking about. Also, as it's aimed at a global audience, some of the contextual information will be missing or will need some revision when you look at it for your own context. So if we think about the legal context, the cultural and the social contexts, you will need to, you're fully able to make changes to this training package. That's absolutely fine. So you will want to put in some specific legal information about child protection in your context, also the cultural and the social. As I said, it's not a lecture style of training, and so for some people who have only ever had that style of training, this might take a bit of time and a bit of open-mindedness to understand new methods. But I assure you it's fully worth it. As I said, the feedback has been positive. I've delivered much of this training myself directly, and people do really grasp the key concepts more quickly than if it was a traditional lecture style. So it's worth taking the time to do that. And then finally, another weakness, which is a big weakness really, and something that I would really love and welcome the opportunity to do, is to conduct a formal trial. So where we can look at what the baseline understanding is, we can conduct the training and then look at what understanding is after training. So some sort of trial like that would be very helpful, but the opportunity hasn't arisen as yet. I'm just going to pause for translation to catch up if needed. Okay. So these are the resources. We have 8. Some are longer than others. So we have 3 training manuals. We have a safeguarding and child protection manual for staff. And then we have the slides to accompany that. We have the same safeguarding and child protection manual, but aimed at teachers, and the slides to accompany that. And so with that one, if there isn't electricity in the schools and you can't use the slides, you can make do without. It is possible. Then there's a positive discipline for teachers manual with accompanying slides. So a big child protection issue that we see in schools is corporal punishment. And so about half of this package concentrates on eradicating corporal punishment. And it takes a holistic approach. So what we see traditionally when we look at corporal punishment eradication efforts is that it's focused solely on the teachers. And so they focus on training teachers in positive discipline methods. But they don't look at the situation holistically, and they don't look at the different stakeholders that are involved in corporal punishment. So, for example, we need to be thinking not just about the teachers, but about the parents and caregivers as well, because we know that parents and caregivers can quite often can push for corporal punishment. So when measures to eradicate it arrive in schools, parents and caregivers may come along and complain, and say, my child's gone wild at home, that he or she needs more discipline, and so you need to start using the cane again, or whatever form of corporal punishment you were using. And then we need the same buy-in by the community and community leaders. And then we also need children that are aware of their rights, because often they're not aware of their rights, and they're not aware that it's illegal in most countries now, not all, but in most countries now it's illegal to use corporal punishment in schools, and yet it continues. And so that's what this package is aiming to tackle, as well as giving a grounding in basic child protection. It then goes on to try to eradicate corporal punishment, which is one of the key child protection issues in schools. So back to the list. We've got the positive discipline for teachers manual and slides, number 3. Again, you can use the slides or not, depending on whether there's electricity. And then number 4, we've got the positive discipline for parents and caregivers manual. So taking us back to that thought about different stakeholders, we're tackling positive discipline within the home environment as well, so that the home and the school environment are in tandem, they're in sync. Then we have number 5, guidance on developing a whole school behaviour policy, and this really supports the eradication of corporal punishment by, I won't tell you in detail because I'll want you to look at it, but it aims to develop a whole school behaviour policy where it sets the different actions that will be taken to prevent behaviour from escalating, and to tackle bad behaviour when it is there as well, and to encourage positive behaviour. We then have a session on child rights, so what we were talking about earlier, building children's ability to recognise what their rights are and stand up for themselves. And then we also have a school child protection policy template, and a school child protection poster template as well. So we're going to look at these now. So about half of them have been revised by the ADRA comms team, and they're looking really, really good. The other half of as they was when I did them, so they don't look quite as nice, but they're all easy to use, I think. So it'll be good to get your feedback on that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide into 8 groups. So there are, in fact, no, the numbers 7 and 8 are very small. as is number 6. So we'll do 6 groups. And I want you to answer the following questions. So I'm not sure, I don't know, Billy, whether you know, whether whether participants will be able to see these questions when they go into groups.
So we won't be able to do the groups given the translations. So is it possible to maybe have a group discussion, like let's say all of us to discuss all together?
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So in that case, I'm going to pick a few of these for us to have a look at. And we can spend, what time are we on? We can spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes discussing each. So I'll pick 3. And the 3 that I'll pick the Safeguarding and Child Protection Manual first, for teachers, because I think that's key. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Lizzie, you mentioned the first. Oh, you're gonna share the first one,
The second.
the second one. Okay, I'm gonna pull it up. And yeah. So let me pull it up. I'll send it on the group chat for people to see.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that will work better actually if people have it themselves to look through. So maybe we'll leave a few minutes for people to click on that link and to go through it. They don't not obviously not read it all, but just flick through, have a look at the structure, what's included, how the activities work, all of that kind of thing. And then we'll have a discussion using these questions afterwards. Okay, so
Okay.
it's there in the chat. That's great. So have a think. You can see, can you see the questions on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So if everybody could just have a quick look at the questions so you know what you're looking for and thinking about, and then go through that document, and then we'll have a discussion. If we just take 3 to 4 minutes, and I'll bring us back together then.
Okay. And let me know if so I can read the questions just in case for the translators. It's the first question is what is this in terms of actually, Lizzie, would you mind reading the questions? I think you'll understand it better than I am.
So the first question is, what is this? So what is this document? Try to explain in a little bit of detail what it's useful, what is useful about this resource. So if you think about your own context, and maybe it won't be useful, and that's okay as well. But maybe it will. And in that case, what is useful about it? And then the next question is, could I use this in my work? And as I said, the answer might be no, but maybe it's yes. In that case, how could you use it in your work? And then the next question is, if it's applicable, why couldn't I use this in my work? And then finally, what changes or resources would be needed if I were to move forward with this? So some of that might be around translation, it might be around some finances, it could be around staffing, it might be a lot more contextual information. So whatever you think, really. So we'll go from here. It's 20 past at the moment. So in 4 minutes, I will bring us back together.
Also, I just want to share that if you have any questions in any language, not any language, but the languages that we can translate, feel free to type it in the language that you feel most comfortable with. The chat is very active, so I do welcome you to use that if something is not clear.
Okay, so let's come back together. Would anybody like to volunteer to take us through their responses to these questions? No? So how about well, we know what it is. Does anybody find this resource useful? If you
I
prefer,
think
I don't
sorry.
know if you're able to see, but Lama from ADRA Syria has her hand raised.
Oh, I can't see that now. Okay, please, Lama, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this useful materials. I will be speaking in Arabic since Dr. Rima is taking over the translation.
Mhm.
Lama, I think we can't hear you. Would you mind yeah,
دكتورة
sharing?
عم تسمعيني هلا؟ اوكي. هو هذا الدليل هو مفيد بالمدارس ليقدر يعرف الأطفال والأساتذة بحقوق الحماية الواجبة للطفل والبيئة بيئة الأمان للطفل. هلأ هو كتير مفيد لحتى الأطفال يتعرفوا على أنواع الحماية المختلفة، على أنواع الأبيوز اللي ممكن يتعرضوا له المختلف. حاحكي بالنسبة للكونتكست السوري أو بالنسبة لنحن برامجنا بسوريا. هذا المانوال كتير مفيد إذا بنقدر نستخدمه ببرامج التعليم يلي نحن مطبقها بسوريا للأطفال المتسربين، للأطفال المتسربين وللأطفال المتعرضين لخطر التطرف. to drop out. تمام. شو التحديات اللي ممكن نحن نواجهها بتطبيقه؟ هي الاختلافات الثقافية يلي على سبيل المثال زواج المبكر يلي هو بكتير مناطق ريفية بسوريا ممكن هو يكون سواء ممكن انه احنا يصير عندنا تشالنج لنقدر نقنع الاهالي انه هذا الشيء لازم ينحد بالنسبه للاطفال اللي هن تحت 18. بالنسبه للتشينجز انا جاوبت على كل الاسئله معلش. انا بس بقترح اذا فينا نترجم لهذا الدليل لاكثر من لغه بما فيها اللغه العربيه. وشكرا كثير.
Thank you, Lama. I think I don't speak Arabic, but I think you were able to answer all of the questions. And just for the sake of our English speakers, I wanted to share that she did answer all the questions. I only caught the last half, but one of the things that she suggested is the need to translate them. And Lama, I'm also going to ask if you can also summarize your answers on the chat. That would be great. But she did mention translation as one of the issues and the need to for us to translate it. If anybody caught the second half, would like to pitch in, please feel free. But thank you.
Thank you, Lama. Okay, so I'm just wondering about the best way to do this, Billy. Does it make more sense for people to write in the chat?
Yes, I think if you have any, if you would like to share the answers on the chat, please feel free to do that. Because of the translation services, maybe what we can do is one thing we can do too is that if you are Arabic, Spanish speaker, or French speaker, and the person is asking the question in French or answering the question in French, Spanish, or Arabic, please go to their channel because I believe that we can translate it back to English. The easiest way is actually to answer it on the chat, and we can provide the translation on the chat. I hope that helps.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm learning a lot today. Okay, so thank you again to Lama. Is there anybody else who would like to share any of their thoughts on this resource? Then please just put your thoughts in the chat now. I'll just wait a minute to see if anybody writes anything. And if
Yes.
not, we'll move on to a new resource.
We see Patrick has his hand up. Yes, Patrick, you can share.
Yeah, thank you so much. In the first place, I would like to appreciate Lizzy and Billy for coming up with this training and also presenting this important document for us to look through. I've seen The document is very useful. It is very important for us to use. It conforms to the conventional standard, and more so, in my observation, it uses the environmental expanding approach, where when we look at the child, this is an individual whom we cannot neglect in her own life. The child's view should be taken seriously. And this document has come out clearly, indicating the child as the first person in this circle, which you have presented here. This clearly shows us that we cannot ignore the rights of children, though they are very young, but whatsoever they speak, whether through drawing, whether by any sign, we should take into consideration. Also, the family comes next. In any action, when we don't involve the family of the child, that means we're leaving a gap in the life of the child, because the family plays a very great role in the life of the child. The early years of the child depends on how the family relates with the child, whether being the parents, the siblings, and whosoever is within that family cycle. When we involve them in the life of the child, that means a lot to this child. Also, the community is indicated here, which is very important because the community has to take responsibility. For instance, if the community understands the right of children, everybody will take responsibility of protecting these rights. And the perpetrators of abuse will be held responsible to account for whatsoever they have done. Then we look at the government. The government is the duty bearer. So we can't work without involving the government as a duty bearer. Going to the next step where we see the central government, the local government, the central government, and also the international community. As we develop, we talk, we have to relate all this, making sure that if we have the child protection safeguarding law, which is at the local level, does it really conform with what the government likes? Does it conform to the international standard that we also just, when these children go out, whatever they do, it will be in conformity with the other places elsewhere in the world? It's what brings us together as humans. I see this document being very important. I can use it in my workplace because name calling will usually tear people apart. As this document says, we should not really use name calling which are negative. And again, what I look at very important in this document is that the document should look at the conceptual, the cultural, and what should really relate very well with what we want to do. Looking at people's culture and then also understanding what is there is what makes us to relate very well without offending one another, which this document has indicated. That means the document is not even very rigid, but we have to really see the cultural context of the people and what they consider to be good. And what are those abuses that we need to improve in that culture. So this resource can bring a great change to our community, whether at the family level, institutional level. It is very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Is there anybody else who would like to give an opinion, and then we'll move on to the next resource?
Lizzie, I just want to read Lama. She typed her response in English. So for those who didn't catch it, so I'll just read it, especially for the interpreters. So her answer for the first question is that the manual is useful, and it is a very useful manual that could help the children be aware about how important to know their protection and what the environment, a protective environment it can be. And the second one is that her second answer is that the resource is very useful for both for the children and the caregiver, for them to know the different types of abuses, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and how to deal with it. So it's a resource she thinks that can benefit not only the child but also the caregiver, and also this resource can also extend to the schools where the children are, and especially those who are at risk of dropping out. So thank you, Lama. I know you're gonna continue sharing your answers, but I think these are great answers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Lana. Okay, so let's have a look now at another resource. Oh. Sorry, just bear with me a second. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Lizzie, we have one more person who wanted to comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We have time. Imam, did you want to comment?
Hello,
Yes. Hi, Imam.
Imam, it's ADRA Sudan.
Okay.
Yes, I see this is a very useful resources for the child protection and child safeguarding, as the issue is not only for concerning schools, it is a holistic issue, which is the responsibility of the family and the school, and as well as the government. When we come for the ideas in the resources, it can be differ according to the context of each country and each community. We need to consider the differences that relevant for the culture and the traditional customs, but we have to be agree on that the responsibility is for the whole. And the corporal punishment, it is prohibited for all over the community and schools and educational foundations. And as also, as my sister Lumna mentioned, at times in some communities, we may have some issues relevant to the culture, like early marriage for the girl child, as she mentioned. And also in some communities, based on the culture, it might be not only marriage, but maybe early forced marriage for the girl child, as the community has some aspects relevant to when a girl reaches some ages, the priority is for getting married rather than continuing in the education. It depends on the circumstances around. But overall, it is so far useful because regardless of the circumstances and the context, child protection and child safeguarding is the very beginning of the comprising for the characteristic and the personality of the child. Briefly, this is what I decided to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. I agree with you completely that early enforced marriage is a big problem in Sudan, but also in many parts of the world. There is definitely a forced and early marriage section in the staff training. It seems from what you've said that maybe it's not in the resource you've just looked at, and that's something I can revise and look at, because I agree it needs to be there. So thank you for pointing that out.
And Lizzie, I just want to read a comment from Kinana from Syria, for the sake of the translations. So let me read it in English. It says that it is very important that all children know their rights, and it is important to help increase their awareness, and this will help them complete their education and live their lives properly, because most children in Syria work alongside their families due to financial weakness. So she also agree with what has been shared so far. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Kinana. There's also a section on child labour in the training for staff. it may not be in the one for teachers as yet, but that's something I'll look at and review. So thank you for pointing that out as well. Yeah, thank you very much. So I think maybe we have time for one more. So, oh, I've done it again. So let's look at, I'm just thinking. Let's look at the guidance on developing a whole school behaviour policy. Are you able to post that, Billy? Number
Yes. Yes, let me do that now. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I posted it on the chat, and yeah, and yeah, so if you're having issues, please let us know if you can't access it. And Lizzie, do you also want to do 2 or 3 minutes for people to look at?
Yeah, let's say that we'll come back together at 50 minutes past, so 10 to.
Okay. And while people are answering looking at the document, I just want to address a question that Patrick put up, that is it possible for such document to be translated in a local language? I think it is definitely you're allowed to do it. Because of manpower, I think it's making it difficult. But if you can share what languages you feel would need to be translated, that'll be great. I know Lama mentioned that Arabic would be good to be translated into. Guillermo in the chat also supported the idea. I believe he's referring to um other languages like Spanish and maybe Portuguese. Um, so if you also want to see those documents and specific documents translated, please let us know, and we may ask for help from your local office to help in that endeavor. But for sure, we want to make the documents very inclusive, and with the support and the buy-ins, we'll look into that. And while everybody's wrapping up, I just want to announce that we will, if you have to leave at the end of the hour, that's definitely okay. We will have an extended discussion of past the 1 hour mark, and that way we can not only continue the discussion, but also if you have any questions, we can help answer. I just also want to make a plug for HumHub, where we have the education HumHub. I'll paste me or Shenda will paste the link again on the chat. We will post all those resources there. They won't be in the translated version, as I think a lot of you are asking for. So we will, however, start with the English and move hopefully soon in the different languages. But if you have one that you want to use by a particular date for a particular session or event, please let us know. And at least we can make them accessible for you to translate. If they're in a PDF format, we can change it in a different format so that you can have access to it. So we will share unless we haven't, yeah. So the HumHub will have all those resources, including this recording. So go back and look at it, and you'll be able to access it. And also, if you have any follow-up questions to this presentation, we'll do that. So yeah, thank you. Lizzy, how much time we have?
We have -1 minute, so we should come back together now. Okay. So if we could all come back together and just spend these last few minutes feeding back on this resource. So using the chat or preferably using the chat, could you put down your thoughts or your answers to these questions regarding the resource? Is there anyone that would prefer to speak instead? Billy, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I see Lama. Lama, let us know, will it be in English or Arabic? If it's in Arabic, maybe what we'll do, the English speakers can switch to Arabic, but
Billy, I can speak in Arabic, so Dr. Rima can translate for you, and I will write also in English.
okay. So if you are an English speaker, I would say let's switch to Portuguese to listen to it. And for all the other translations, Lama will write it in on the chat, and we'll share that again. I hope that's okay.
اوكي
Okay.
هلا بالنسبه للسؤال الاول، هو وثيقه بتعمل تطوير للسلوك المطلوب بالمدرسه بالنسبه للمتعلمين والمعلمين. بالنسبه للسؤال الثاني، بشو مفيده هاي الوثيقه؟ هي مفيدة لأنه بتعطي بالضبط بتعطي بالضبط شو السلوك المطلوب من من المتعلمين وشو السلوك المطلوب من المتعلمين وبنفس الوقت هي بتشمل جميع الأطراف سواء كانوا متعلمين مقدمي رعاية أو أطفال. إذا نحن فينا بنستخدمها بشغلنا، حأحكي من بلدنا، إيه فينا بنستخدمها. هلأ نحن عنا بسوريا برامج اسمها non-formal education programs. بخلال هاي البرامج نحن فينا نستخدم هاي الوثيقة بجلسات التوعية اللي بنعملها بهاي البرامج، ونعمل لها ادفوكيت لحتى المدارس تبلش تتبناها. هلا بالنسبة للتحديات ممكن نحن نحتاج وقت طويل لحتى نلاقي نتائج هاي الوثيقة على وجه الأرض، لأنه طبعا أي تغيير هو بيحتاج وقت لحتى بس وبالنسبة للمقترح أنا بقترح كمان نترجمها للغة العربية.
Thank you. Thank you,
وشكرا
Lama.
كثير.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lama. Just to read
Thank you.
the comments that you added in English. So you said that indeed the teachers have been trained in this educational approach based on the resource that we shared, but the main problem is the difference in cultures. But you suggest that through psychosocial support sessions for parents and teachers, we try to develop the child, give the child ideas at school and at home, to help connect them to improve their not only their psychological but also their to improve them at their academic level. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful and detailed. Is there anybody else that would like to feedback on this? No? Okay. So we are on the hour now. So I believe that we will carry on we'll be here for another up to half an hour. If you need to leave now, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we can stay behind for any general questions or specific thoughts, problems, etc. Yeah, feel free. But it's been really nice for those who leave. Thank you very much for joining today. It's been very nice having this hour with you, and I hope we get to meet again.
Lizzie, I guess I have a question. Based on what I'm hearing, do you think the child protection, all those resources, how difficult would it be, let's say, to put them in the right, let's say in the context? Let's say if the resource is using imagery that in the cultural context it doesn't get it. How hard is it, do you think, for those to be adapted in different cultural contexts, based on your past experience?
I don't think it's very hard. In terms of actual images, there are images in the manuals, but you don't share those with participants, so they don't need changing necessarily. On the front page of each set of slides, there is an image, and that can be changed very easily. But I purposefully didn't include many images so that it was more universal. And then in terms of actual content and cultural context, you could, if you wanted to, if you had to deliver it tomorrow, you could deliver it as is and just add the additional information verbally. It would be better if you spent some time and amended the slides a little bit, included some country statistics, for example, that kind of thing. But you could also still do that verbally. So it would depend on how much time you had available to make those amendments.
Thank you. Any questions from from the rest of the audience? Lama, yes, go ahead.
It's not questions, it's only suggestions. You know that there is similar cultures among the regions. For example, Middle East, they have similar culture. African countries, they have similar culture. So maybe we can work together how to make changes on these manuals based on the cultures for regions, not only countries, which is will be more easier.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, if we could find a way to create a little hub almost for child protection or education in Africa. I don't know if you have this already. I'm a consultant, so I don't fully know ADRA's systems. But if there is already existing a group for the Africa region, for the Middle Eastern region, for example, that could then come together and contextualize the documents, it wouldn't necessarily be a lot of work. You could do it fairly quickly, but to be more efficient, you could certainly share. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and just to add to what Lizzie says, I think it's feasible, depending on I think what I've observed so far is that let's say if ADRA Syria would like to take the lead in this, I don't think it's an issue to invite, let's say, for instance, ADRA Lebanon, ADRA Yemen into the discussion to put something together. It doesn't have to always come from the regional office because sometimes there's not enough manpower, let's say, to lead that. But for in our context, maybe that's something that the education TLL can support in providing, let's say, the coordination. So that's something that we can help or support. So these are the two ways you can go about it. Either, ADRA Syria can take the lead in that, or we can work together in coordination with the either the education TLL or the regional office. So whichever method works best for the local context or the regional context, I think is good. Yeah.
Are there any more comments or questions or thoughts?
Just a quick survey. Is this the first time that any of you have been exposed to those resources for child protection? If not, also let us know. That way we can help disseminate those resources to the network better. You can add it on the chat or verbally.
This will certainly be the first time that everyone has been exposed to the most up-to-date version of them, because comms has been over about half of them and made lots of really positive changes to the layout and things. So it would probably be helpful to disseminate all of them again to everyone anyway.
Got it. Yeah, and as I shared, we are posting them on the Hub, and so yeah, so we will continue doing that. The Education Community of Practice Hub, the link has been shared, so we will be uploading um those information there. I see Beryl has a question. I don't know if Beryl, you wanted to share that verbally, or you prefer us reading it.
Oh, I don't mind. So basically, yeah, I was just wondering, having not fully seen in the child protection manual for staff that Billy shared in the chat, there wasn't anything on safeguarding there. But I was just wondering, for safeguarding that is included maybe in another document, is it talking about safeguarding in the context of ADRA policies, or is it safeguarding for the school to develop their own policies and processes?
There's, I think I understand. I'm not 100% sure, but there is a document that we've not been through today, but it is listed on the list. That is a template child protection policy for schools. So the schools are free to amend that to suit their local context, but they've got the template available. Does that answer your question, Beryl?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a follow-up question. So, because one of the documents was safeguarding and child protection for staff, is that for ADRA staff?
Yes. So the idea it was mainly designed with for the idea that a new project, and so if there was sort of a whole group of new staff, of education staff, they could then receive that training. There is some overlap. This document was done before there were other documents available, safeguarding trainings available within ADRA. So there is some overlap there, but it's meant to complement rather than replicate.
Yeah, of course. No, that's great. Yeah, I guess my thought would just be, it'd be good for me to just have a look at it and just make sure it is up to date with all of our policies. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, otherwise it's really great, I think.
Are there any other comments? No? So, Billy, I think we might be ready to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lizzy, for the presentation, and also all those resources. We didn't get a chance to go through all of them, but they are marvelous. We will share the rest of them on Hub so that you can not only see them but also request, let's say, for them to be translated, and or request for if something is missing. So we will make that available. But before I finish, I see Lama, you have one more question. Yeah.
I have the questions for Lizzy. Lizzy, do you think we can use these materials as guide for our work in the education program here in Syria?
Yes, I think it's suitable for work anywhere in the world. It's meant to be global. So one of the downsides of it is around the need for contextualization and also translation. But I don't see any reason why it can't be used in the Syrian context.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. And if there is any question that you are didn't get a chance to answer, we will be available on HumHub, let's say, to answer that. I'll also share my email. And Lizzy, if it's okay, I'll share your email. That way, if you have any follow-up questions, if you cannot access the documents, feel free to let us know. But with that, I just want to say thank you for everyone who came. A big thank you for Lizzy. And also thank you for our translators, Rima, Ernesto, Ravaka, and FIFA, who have been doing their best to keep up with our translation, how we're talking. Sometimes, you talk fast, but they're in the background sweating bullets in order to make sense of what we're talking about. So thank you so much for all of this, and everyone who joined, everyone who participated. Thank you. We don't want you to go home and feel good about the presentation, but the purpose of the presentation is essentially to better help our programming, to help people. We want to make it more localized, contextualized. The idea of localization, we want to do that, and the ultimate purpose is to make to help those that we serve better, with better qualities, and especially children. Sometimes children are forgotten during emergencies or doing any type of development programs or emergency programs, and we want to bring the attention back to the need of children and their right for safe education, for protection wherever they are. So we really want to thank everyone who helped contribute and participate to make those resources available to help, so that can be adapted in your local context, and be used by that. So thank you, everyone. We wish you a good day, good night, or good morning, wherever you are. And we'll see you for our next meeting or webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.